guys, today we are talking about how I managed to lose the last 12 pounds. I'm finally done with my fat loss journey. Really quick though, my New Year's sale of all of my ebooks and workout programs is about to end on Saturday. So if you do want to get 22% off of any of my ebooks or workout programs with the code FIT22 in celebration of 2022, now is your chance. I have Project Comeback, which is a 6-week program designed to get you back on track if you took a break during holidays or just took a break because 2020 and 2021 have been extremely overwhelming. I also have Brains and Gains, which is a full fitness and lifestyle program. The workouts can be anywhere between 2 and 6 days a week. They're phased so that you can do the program over and over and keep seeing progress. It also comes with a full nutrition plan and wellness plan to help you get to where you want to be. So check those out if you want to get them on sale. Link in the description. But for now, let's just dive into my full fat loss journey. So in the last 7 months, I lost about 12.5 pounds. And I wanted to make this video because so many of the I lost 10 pounds, I lost 30 pounds videos on YouTube are from people who weren't really paying much attention to their health before. And so they're like, yeah, I just started exercising twice a week and I stopped eating chips and look, I lost 30 pounds. And that's great, that's fantastic. I'm very happy for them, but that's not the place I was starting from. Things have to be approached pretty differently when you already have a background of being regularly active and having a relatively healthy diet. When there's a lot less low-hanging fruit, like easy things to change, you have to pay a lot more attention to detail, which is what I had to do. So I wanted to share my process of doing that. I think it's important to start by addressing why I gained weight in the first place, because that's really the beginning of the weight loss journey, is the weight gain. In 2018 and 2019, I went through something called Topical Steroid Withdrawal. I have a whole video about that if you want to learn more about my health issues. But basically, it was a whole thing. It caused all sorts of health issues. Mainly, it threw my cortisol completely out of whack. And so my theory is that as I was healing from that, I started exercising again, but I don't think my cortisol was completely stabilized yet, or maybe it did some weird thing where it was trying to stabilize, but the exercise plus imbalanced cortisol led to weight gain. So I gained 8 to 10 pounds in the course of 2 months. And I want to address why I wanted to lose the weight, because I want to make this abundantly clear that this was not coming from a place of self-hate. I did not dislike my body as it was. In fact, I kind of enjoyed being curvier. I felt good like that and I liked my body. It just didn't feel like me. But I also know a big part of me felt like I wouldn't feel fully healed from all of my health issues until I lost the weight that the health issues caused me to gain. If you guys followed me on that journey, you know I fought so freaking hard to get healthy again and feel good again. And so part of me was determined to just get everything back in its place, including my original body composition. Now here's the thing, I did try to lose weight about a year before. Pretty soon after I actually gained the fat, I was like, okay, let's just try to lose this fat that I just gained. And I failed pretty miserably for multiple reasons. I made a whole video about all of the mistakes that I made when it came to my fat loss journey before. Highly recommend watching that video. I don't have time to go over them all in this video, but it highlights a lot of the main reasons people fail at their own weight loss journey. So I'll link to that down in the description box below. But one of the biggest mistakes that I made that I didn't talk about in that video, because it's not really relevant to a lot of people, is that I let the pressure of social media get to me. Trying to lose weight and document it publicly on YouTube gave me major imposter syndrome. And I was worried that if I didn't lose the weight super quickly, that everyone would think I was a fraud, because I talk about how to lose fat effectively and in a healthy way. And I coach people on how to lose fat. And if I can't do it, then I must just be a failure and a fraud. Even though I always preach that losing fat fast is a bad idea, I felt the pressure to do that to prove that I could do it. It's dumb, I know. But it really got in my head and it kept making me want to just cut my calories and do a ton of cardio. And I was like, this is not good. I didn't do those things, but it was a constant mental battle and I could just tell that I was not in a good place to start this journey. So this time, when I decided to come back to fat loss, I decided to hire a coach to relinquish myself of all responsibility so that if I failed, it wouldn't be my fault. I could just have her tell me what to do and I could just do it. So I hired my coach, Lauren. Highly recommend giving her a follow, checking out her programs and stuff like that too. She is absolutely amazing. She's the one person that I've found whose views on health and fitness really align with my own. And I do think hiring a coach for any sort of aesthetic goals is obviously going to be really helpful, but clearly that's not feasible for a lot of people, which is why I have a ton of free videos on how to lose fat. I have a whole playlist. I will leave a link to that down in the description box below. Let's talk goal setting, because this is just the way you set your goals is going to set you up for success or failure. Here's the secret. Everyone can be successful. Most people just set their goals up in a way that caused them to fail. So first and foremost, I used my old physique as my inspo photos. Like, I just wanted to look like I did before. I wasn't trying to look like anyone else. I was just trying to look like me. You're setting yourself up for failure if you're trying to look like someone else, especially when they don't have the same body type as you. I also did not set a specific goal weight. I set a goal feel and a goal look. I knew what I wanted to look like because I had looked like that in the past, and so that was basically just my goal. But I didn't know how much muscle I had lost I took a year off when I had health issues, also quarantine, pandemic stuff. I might have lost a ton of muscle, and so I didn't know how much weight I needed to lose to get back to roughly the same body fat percentage, which is why I didn't set a weight goal. So here's the big thing. I gave myself 1 year, a whole year, to lose 10 pounds. Ish. This is one of the biggest mistakes that I see people making on their fat loss journey, is they set these arbitrary deadlines that force them to try to lose weight faster than is healthy or faster than is sustainable. And so they either fall off track, feel guilty, and just give up because the process they were trying to use wasn't sustainable because they were trying to lose weight way too fast, or they successfully lose the weight by the deadline, but then they end up just gaining it all back because, again, it wasn't sustainable. So here's Marissa's #1 recommendation for any of you that set weight loss goals for the new year. Take the amount of time that you want to reach your goal in and double it, triple it. Want to lose 10 pounds in 10 weeks? Make that 30 weeks. Take the pressure off yourself. When you set these arbitrary deadlines, you're just creating this false sense of stress that doesn't need to be there. And it just serves to make you feel like a failure when you don't achieve these goals that would have been really freaking hard to achieve anyway. Don't set yourself up for failure from the get-go. Give yourself plenty of time, like more time than you think you need, to achieve your goals. Another very important part of my goals was to do this in a healthy way and not sacrifice my health in any way to achieve my goals. I wanted to make sure I maintained good energy, my hormones stayed balanced, I felt good in the gym, I was getting good sleep, all of the markers of being healthy. Always prioritize health first. If you sacrifice your health to achieve your aesthetic goals, chances are those aesthetic goals are gonna go away as fast as you got them, and your health is already gone, so now you have neither, and now you have to start over. Don't start over, prioritize your health. And here's the last big thing about goal setting, is I set these goals at the beginning, and then from then on, I wasn't really thinking about the goal. I wasn't obsessed with that final result. I shifted my focus to enjoying the process. I did track my progress and I used data, which I'll talk about in a second, but I didn't let that data affect how I was approaching the process, because loving the process is what makes the end goal sustainable. So let's talk about how I tracked my goals. My main metrics were body weight, body fat percentage, and progress pictures. Now here's the thing, for me, and where I was starting, I knew, or at least thought I knew, that I was happy with the amount of muscle mass that I had on my body, and so I wasn't trying to gain muscle and lose fat at the same time. I was kind of trying to keep my amount of muscle and lose fat. So for me, weight was actually a pretty good metric of progress. But for a lot of people, especially people just starting their journeys, weight can be a really poor metric of progress because you might be building muscle and losing fat at the same time, in which case your weight is staying the same, but your body fat percentage is decreasing. And generally, your goal is to just decrease body fat percentage, whereas the actual number on the scale for your weight is kind of irrelevant to how you look. So for most people, I recommend tracking body fat percentage and using progress pictures, maybe taking like actual measurements around like your waist and stuff. Big note on this, okay? Do not get caught up in the day-to-day fluctuations of the data, or even the week-to-week fluctuations, because they are not reflective of the overall trends. You have to give something at least like 4 weeks to see if it's working, and I'll talk more about this later. I also want to note that I did not weigh myself on days that I knew my weight would be off for whatever reason. So if I had had like a ton more carbs the day before for whatever reason, that would result in increase in water weight storage. Or if I had a ton more sodium the day before, so like maybe I like went out to a restaurant and ate something that was gonna be full of salt, that would result in more water weight. If I was on my period, or if I hadn't been having regular bowel movements for whatever reason, I also avoided weighing myself because that data would have been skewed anyway, and my weight would have been higher than it naturally would have been otherwise. But I see people do this all the time, is they weigh themselves and they know that they did something the day before that might cause their weight to increase, but they still freak out and think that they're failing and think that they gained all the weight back or whatever. But no, there are so many reasons your daily body weight might fluctuate that have nothing to do with the amount of fat on your body. So there's no point in stressing out about the numbers that you know are already going to be off. So before I get into what I actually did, I want to make this very, very clear that this is my journey. This is not my recommendation for everyone. I started from my own unique place and based my process off of that. If you are brand new to health and fitness, your journey should look extremely different from mine. If you are brand new to health and fitness, highly recommend checking out my fitness starter kit playlist. That will walk you through a lot more actual steps that I recommend for people in your position. Different people are going to need different things, especially calories. Like, I'm gonna share the calories that I consumed with you guys. Do not copy my calories and macros in an attempt to lose fat. I know it's tempting, don't do it. With that said, let's talk about what I actually did, starting with nutrition. I did indeed track my calories. I have a very good relationship with food and with tracking. I simply see tracking as a tool. It doesn't make me feel restricted or guilty if I go over my macros. I simply see like numbers and information when I track. I am a nerd for data. So for me, doing it this way was super sustainable and honestly like kind of fun. I did weigh and measure everything that I could, but I didn't worry about being super precise. Like I ate out at restaurants kind of whenever I felt like it and just estimated the best I could. If you're like, but Marissa, I don't want to track macros, or like I have a really bad relationship with food and I can't track macros. Again, I am not recommending you do this. I have a whole video on how to lose fat without tracking macros if you'd rather check that out. So let's get into the timeline of the structure of my diet and macros. For the first 4 months, I did not eat in a deficit. My coach instead took that time to have me restructure my macros and build a healthy, sustainable baseline from which to make changes. Before we started, she had me track for like a week or two and see what I was eating on average. And what I was eating on average was about 90 grams of protein, 150 grams of carbs, and 120 grams of fat for a total of about 2,040 calories. So that was my maintenance. And you might be going, oh my God, Marissa, it's so low carb. I just love fat, okay? Like all of my favorite foods are just high fat. I don't restrict carbs. Love eating a lot of fat. My coach is like, no, you need more carbs. So we slowly increased carbs and increased protein, decreased fat, and got me to 125 grams of protein, 245 grams of carbs, and 60 grams of fat for a total of 2,020 calories. Here's the thing, you guys might be like, oh my God, you increased carbs in order to lose fat? Yes, we did. Protein and carbs are the two most helpful macros to get lean. First of all, protein's super important because it supports maintaining any muscle mass that you have so you don't just like lose a ton of fat and muscle and just become a skinny fat version of what you were before. But carbs, oh my God, carbs are so helpful for fat loss. Not only do they support your muscle as well, they support protein uptake as well as muscle maintenance when you're in a calorie deficit, but they also boost workout performance. So you can work out harder, get more out of your workouts, burn more calories or build more muscle, whatever it is, when you have more carbs. And this is all conducive to more optimized fat loss. I have a whole video that goes into more of the science behind why carbs are helpful for fat loss, if you do want to check that out in the description box below. But TLDR, don't cut carbs if you're trying to lose fat. Oh, also just as a note, I am a relatively small human. I started out as a relatively small human. I am 5'2", so my macros are gonna be much lower than like an average person, because I am smaller than average. So again, don't copy my macros. This first 4-month phase, actually it was 3 months because I think I ended up getting sick for the last month. This 3-month phase of shifting my macros and really focusing on like building a stable baseline at more carbs, more protein, and really just focusing on like maximizing my strength in the gym, maximizing my performance. So invaluable to do that before you try to lose weight. But this is like pro tip. If you are embarking on a weight loss journey, start it with a maintenance phase or even a reverse diet to speed your metabolism up. And I'm actually gonna be creating a whole course on reverse dieting because I get so many questions about it. I'm like, I need to make a course for everyone. But for now, I have a whole playlist on how to do that. But if you start your cut from a place where your metabolism is fired up, you're maintaining weight on like high calories, you're eating enough protein, you're eating enough carbs, you're eating enough fat, like your body is in a happy, strong, stable place, your cut is gonna go so much smoother than if you start out from a place where you've only ever been trying to cut, you've only ever been trying to lose weight. Your body's gonna be like, nah, like no, calm down. So after building a strong, healthy, stable baseline, we finally did a small cut. I'll put my macros right here, workout days and rest days. They were a little bit different, but what I want to note about this is the size of the deficit was quite small. It was about a 9% deficit. I was in about 170 calorie deficit, not a 500 calorie deficit, 170 calorie deficit. And I ate this way for about, I think, 5 or 6 weeks. Then life happened, which again, I left space for in my plan of taking a year to do this. I ended up getting a couple jobs working on set doing music videos, which if you work on set, you know it takes literally your whole life. I was sleeping like 6 hours a night, working like 20 hours a day, and it was madness. So any thought about weight loss just went out the window. So what I did, I ate intuitively for a month, stopped focusing on fat loss, went to the gym probably twice in that month. I was just like, we'll get back to it when I get back to it. And when I did get back to it, my coach gave me new macros because I was like, yo, let's like play around with this, see what we can do. So she put me in like a smidge more of a deficit. Again, workout days, rest days, if you want to see what I was at. Did that for another 4 to 6 weeks. And then my skin flared, which is the health issues I was dealing with before. Basically, I was in quite a bit of pain and discomfort. Working out was just extremely uncomfortable because it made my skin feel worse. And it got so bad that I was like, okay, I need to take a step back from the gym, from trying to lose weight, and just focus on like healing. And so I did. I ended up taking like a month and a half off. I think I worked out once or twice in that month and a half. I ate intuitively. I gave myself as much space and time as I needed to feel healthy again. And then I got back to it. And when I got back to it, I decided to take a different approach with my nutrition just because I felt like I was mentally in a different place and I felt like this was just gonna work better for where I was. And that was that I decided to aim for a weekly average, or at least hit like minimums on average for the week, instead of trying to be more precise with the daily numbers. So these are the average numbers that I was trying to hit at minimum. I was just trying to make sure that I was eating enough to fuel my progress, and I didn't really stress out if I ended up eating more than that. I have a whole video on how to use my macro averager to hit weekly averages with macros so that you don't have to be super precise day to day if that's the kind of tracking that works best for you. So I'll link that video down in the description box below. So I followed that for about 6 weeks and I basically ended up hitting my goal. By the end of those 6 weeks, I was like, yeah, like I don't think I want to or need to lose any more fat. Like I think I'm here. Then I got sick. Then there were the holidays, and now we're here. While being sick and throughout the holidays, I ate intuitively. I ate a ton of chocolate, so much chocolate, so good. And I've basically maintained my weight. So that was my process with calories. I did get a lot of questions about whether or not I implemented mini cut cycles into my protocol. I have a whole video about why it's important to take regular diet breaks when you're in a calorie deficit in order to keep losing fat and not tank your metabolism. So again, I'll link that down in the description box below. But as you might have been able to tell, I kind of naturally took diet breaks every like 4 to 6 weeks for about 4 to 6 weeks. And so I never actually actively needed to implement diet breaks because life happened and life ended up being my diet breaks. So in the 7 months from when I started my deficit to when I hit my goal, I only spent about 14 weeks in a deficit and spent about 12-ish weeks at maintenance, eating intuitively. So that was my macros. As far as food quality goes, no foods were off limits except for gluten because I have celiac disease, so I will like die. But this is how I avoided feeling restricted. If I wanted pizza, I ate pizza. If you want to see examples of my go-to foods, I have a fat loss meal plan video where I talked about my go-to breakfast, lunch, dinner snacks. I also have a lot of what I eat in a day over the span of when I was in a calorie deficit, so I'll try to link some of those down below as well. And I was actually less focused on eating healthy during this time than I normally am. I prioritized macros over food quality because I knew that if I tried to do everything, like eat the healthy diet that I normally try to eat and track macros and make it all fit, I probably would have become obsessive or just way too stressed out about it and just quit. So I didn't do that. I wouldn't say my diet was unhealthy, like I didn't go to the extreme other end, but I was just less health focused than normal. And for me, I think this was a really good break because for the last 2 years before that, I was very focused on the health of my diet because I was healing health issues, balancing my hormones, all of that. Like my whole focus was on health. And so I think taking this break to kind of shift my focus, shift my goals and all of that was good for me. But big disclaimer, most people who are trying to lose fat probably don't want to make their diet less healthy. In general, focusing on making your diet more full of whole and processed foods, good quality protein, vegetables, good quality fat, all of that good stuff, that's gonna help you on your weight loss journey. So again, what I'm doing is not what I recommend for everyone. And finally, because I have talked a lot about hormones and eating around your menstrual cycle, I have a whole video on that too. I got a lot of questions about whether or not I did adjust my macros around my menstrual cycle, and I never ended up doing that. I was paying attention to my hormones, paying attention to how my body was responding. If I had noticed that being in a deficit around the end of my luteal phase and the beginning of my menstrual phase had caused issues, I probably would have adjusted that, but my hormones stayed very stable throughout this entire process, and so I never really felt the need to adjust accordingly. So that was nutrition. Let's talk about exercise. I did indeed follow my own workout program, Brains and Gains. I followed the version that is 5 days a week, so it's basically training 5 hours a week, lifting heavy. My main focus was resistance training and applying progressive overload. This is really important to maintain your muscle mass as well as keep your metabolism as high as possible while in a calorie deficit. Training in the same way that you would to build muscle when you're in a bulk is the best way to maintain muscle when you're in a deficit. There's no magic trick to changing your training to lose fat. If you want to lose body fat percentage rather than total weight, you're gonna want to keep lifting heavy, focusing on building muscle, or at least preserving as much muscle as you can. You don't need to add supersets or like double your reps or anything like that. Like, same basic training principles apply. When it comes to cardio, my coach did want me to add cardio. You guys know how I feel about cardio. I don't like it. I never have. It's not necessary for fat loss. Let me repeat that. Cardio is not necessary for fat loss. I have a whole video about why it's even not optimal for fat loss. If you want to check that out, I'll link it down below. But I hired a coach to tell me what to do, so I was gonna do what she told me to do. So I tried adding in some HIIT. I tried adding in some moderate intensity, steady state exercise, and I'd be consistent for like a week and a half, and then I'd miss a session or two. Like, I just could not be consistent with it. But I also had the feeling like I was pushing my body too hard or too much. Like, I added the cardio on top of the lifting 5 hours a week. And I know my body pretty darn well. And when I would do like 3 cardio sessions in a week, I just felt off. It felt like I was doing too much. Here's the interesting thing. The times when I was doing cardio, I saw some of the least progress. Like, I made the most progress in the last cut phase that I was in, when I was doing 0 cardio, and I decided to scale back on my exercise because I had taken that previous break because my skin was having issues and I wanted to be more gentle on my body. And so I scaled back on total hours per week. I had been training 5 days a week. I switched to about 3.5 hours a week, and instead of training every 5 out of 7 days, I was training every 6 out of 8 days. So I increased frequency like a smidge, but decreased total exercise time. So my workouts were about half an hour to 45 minutes instead of a full hour. And I made the most noticeable and consistent progress when I decreased my exercise. Now, I'm not saying this was the only factor, but I can guarantee it was a big factor. Training more, training harder, training longer does not necessarily equate to faster results, and certainly doesn't equate to more sustainable results. I get people all the time being like, Marissa, I'm like training 6 days a week, like I'm doing everything right, like what do I do? My answer is usually try training less. Your body might like that a lot more. Now, while I didn't cycle my calories around my menstrual cycle, I did adjust my exercise a smidge. I've noticed that if I push my workouts and like try to hit PRs for like the 4 days before I start my period in the first couple days, it just doesn't go as well. So I just made sure that like week before my period, I was not pushing the weights. I was aiming for more maintenance, or if my body felt more fatigued, I would decrease the weight a little bit. Like, I very much listened to how my body was responding at that time. And as a note about exercise, your strength and performance in the gym is a fantastic indicator of how this journey is actually going for you, regardless of what the scale says. You should feel good during your workouts. If your performance starts to take a hit, if you're gradually feeling weaker and weaker and weaker, you're either doing too much exercise or not eating enough, or a combination of both. Optimal progress is a bell curve. Training too little or too much is going to slow or stop your progress. So a couple more things about my process. One of the biggest questions that I got from you guys is how I got through plateaus. This is like biggest, best kept secret of how to get through plateaus is trust the process. Do not adjust course just because you hit a plateau? So my answer is, if you hit a plateau, do nothing. Just keep doing what you're doing. This is applicable to like 90% of cases. And this was the hardest part for me because the entire time until like the very end, I felt like I was plateaued. Like you can see the graph of my weight here. After a month of being in a deficit, my weight was basically the same. But I told myself to just trust the process, trust Lauren, and keep going. So I did. In month 2, my weight was basically the same from the 1st to the 24th, but I was down 4 pounds. So I felt like I was in a plateau the entire time, but I had already lost 4 pounds. Then all of a sudden I lost weight, but then I gained it back. And so I felt like I was failing and going backwards. And I felt like I had another setback. So at the end of month 3, I had felt the whole time like I was making no progress, but I had actually lost 7 pounds. It was only like the last 6 weeks before getting sick that I saw like significant like linear downward progress. But this was after 5 months of putting in work. Technically 9 if you count the maintenance phase before I went into a deficit. This is why if you feel like you're plateaued, because like I said in the beginning, do not look at the day-to-day or week-to-week fluctuations. They are not going to show you the overall trend. If you feel like you're plateaued, you just need to keep going and trust the process. This is where people fail all the time, is they hit a plateau for a week or 2 weeks and then they get scared and so they change things. But the body thrives on consistency. And if you are consistent, you will see progress, not consistent progress, because that's not how things work. But if you're changing things every couple weeks because you're like, oh my God, I hit a plateau, what do I do? And especially if you lower your calories every couple weeks because you keep thinking that you're hitting a plateau and don't know what to do, you're going to dig yourself in a hole or just not make any progress. So let's talk about the exciting part, my results. First of all, I was very successful when it came to maintaining my health. I was able to maintain healthy hormones. I never really got PMS. I have a regular menstrual cycle, like all that's going well. Sleep was consistently good. Energy was pretty darn consistently good. I was making consistent strength gains even in a deficit, like everything was good. We're good. Now, this would not be a Marissa body update video without doing a little dancey body update. So here's that. Enjoy. So my average weight over the 4 months of just maintaining my weight before I started my deficit was 124 pounds, and my average weight over the last couple weeks has been 111.5 pounds. So all in all, I have lost a total of 12.5 pounds, and my average starting body fat was about 20.78%, and now over the last couple weeks, it has been closer to 17.5%. And just looking at my body, I feel like you can see a difference. Like I feel like I'm looking leaner. I can particularly especially notice this in my face. Like I feel like my face looks more me, which is nice. And really quickly, there's 2 more questions that I got a lot, so I just wanted to address them. One was, what do you change as a petite person to lose fat? Nothing. Petite people are not biologically different than taller people. If your calories are too low for you to lose fat on, if you're like, I'm small, I can't eat enough, reverse diet. That's literally the solution. That applies to everyone, not just petite people. But if you're like, oh my God, I'm so small, I have to eat 1,200 calories to lose weight, that's not true. I'm 5'2". I was losing weight on like 1750 for calories. You can do it too. And of course, the question that gets asked most frequently is, how do I lose more fat from my belly, from my arms, from my thighs, etc.? Answer, you cannot spot reduce fat. I am sorry I don't have a more encouraging answer for you, but you just gotta focus on overall fat loss. So my takeaways from this, I did have to lose a little more weight than I thought I would to get the physique that I was after, which means I lost more muscle than I thought I had during my whole health crisis when I wasn't going to the gym for a year. So now basically I want to build probably about like 2, 3, maybe 4-ish, I don't know, pounds of muscle, mainly in my glutes and my hamstrings, because I lost a lot of my glutes. Also never really had hamstrings. I've been saying this for years. I want hamstrings. I would like to be able to maintain that new physique, like with an extra couple pounds of muscle, at like between 2,100 and like 2,350 calories. The plan is to reverse diet while lifting, focusing specifically on building glutes and hamstrings. I actually just wrote myself a program. Let me give you guys a spoiler. I wrote myself a program where I'm training glutes every day, and I'm gonna do that for like 3 months and film a video on it to see if it helps my glutes grow. So I think that covers it. This was probably an extremely long video, but I wanted to make sure I answered all of your guys' questions and gave you all of the information in one place. I did document this whole process on my YouTube channel, so if you want to see more of me going through this process, you can watch some of my previous videos from the last year. But I hope this answered all of your guys' questions. If you do have more questions or comments or concerns, please leave them down in the comments below. If you want to see more videos from me all about health and fitness, fat loss, etc., you can check them out over here. Make sure you hit that subscribe button to see more future videos. Hit the little notification bell so you get notified when I post a video, and I will see you very soon. Bye!